Let us now continue to discuss some more terminology and some more concepts associated with user defined functions. So if you see here, big is assigned biggest a comma b comma c. This biggest a comma b comma c is referred to as the function call, because when the compiler executes or encounters this particular line, it will transfer control or it will jump here and start executing this piece of code, do the calculation, take this big value and return it back. Since this biggest is returning back, it's returning from the right side. This can also be thought of as an expression. That value gets copied to big. So the general form of a function call is variable. So variable here is big. Function name biggest. What are the arguments or parameters? A comma b comma c. You need to ensure the data type of a comma b comma c is the same as x, y and z. Otherwise you won't get correct results. It is also possible to call functions just like this, just the function name without argument list, just the function name with argument list, or you can have a variable and a function without any arguments. We'll encounter these, or we'll take a look at these over a period of next a couple of videos. Now here I have shown you that example, big is equal to biggest a comma b comma c. Function name biggest, parameters or arguments are a comma b comma c. Now what I am going to do here is, let's expand our understanding on functions. So here what I have done is, I have created a function called as cube to find the cube of an integer using functions. So what this int cube int is telling me is, the name of the user created function is cube. It is accepting an argument whose data type is integer. After finding the cube, it is sending back a value whose data type is also integer. This information is very important for the compiler. That is the reason you included the header files, because header files contain this prototype declaration, which is useful for the compiler to check whether you are sending the correct parameters of the right data type. Then I have a number int n. Then what I am doing is, I am asking the user to enter a number. Here I am printing out cube of a number is cube n. This is the function call. Let us see what is happening in the function call. This n gets copied to number. Let's say number is 10. N is 10. Number also becomes 10. This int num is local to this particular cube. So 10 into 10 is 100. 100 into 10 is 1000. So 1000 will come in place of cube of n, and the cube of number 10 is going to print as 1000 and finally return 0 from main. You will understand all these other things in a short while. So let us try to run through different concepts line by line. That is how it's going to give you a better confidence and understanding. There's a lot of terminology associated with functions. It's really a simple chapter. You just don't need to get scared with listening to so much of terminology. So now if you see here, this cube function is defined or created after the main function. Main is also a function, cube is also a function. So this int cube, you may type it above main or you may type it above after main. It's up to you. But if you type it after main, you must specify this particular prototype. Then, so look at the next thing. A function may be called by specifying its arguments and its name followed by comma separated argument. So what is the name I'm calling? Function name is cube. What is the argument? N. Do I have more than one value to send? No. So I am not separating them by comma. Whereas if you had looked at this particular fellow here, biggest, I have three arguments or three parameters. That's why I am separating them by comma. Whereas I have only one argument, so I am not required to send any or separate anything by comma. They must be encountered in parentheses. So if no arguments are there, it will just be the function. This n will disappear. We'll just have an empty parenthesis. Okay, let us see what are the different. Main is known as the calling function because it is taking the help of cube. So cube is the helper or called function. Don't use the word helper. I'm just making it simple for you. Cube is the called function. This is the calling function. So when the calling function calls the called function, okay, the control at this point will come here. It will start calculating this and send this value back here. So the control from main temporarily comes here, prints the value, and then after that it comes to return 0 and then halts. Okay. Now calling function will always send the values. Called function will always receive the arguments or values. Okay, function call is a statement that is used to call. So this is a function call. Cube_n is an example of a function call. It is a simple instruction or a statement that is used to force this cube code to execute. When a function call is made, the control is transferred from main to here. This I have repeated any number of times. Now let's try to understand a few other things associated with this particular program, because the basic concepts are very important. When you go to industry, it is almost impossible that you will be writing any program without using functions. Functions are like compulsorily you will be writing programs using functions. Now since main also happens to be a function just like cube, main also can return a value. In this case, so far if you have seen, every time I have said return 0, but I have not explained much. Now I'll explain what is this return 0. If this program executes successfully, this value of 0 is taken by the operating system, that is Linux or Windows, indicating the program executed successfully. Suppose there was some problem, I could return different values like 1, 2, 3, -5, 6. Those would indicate error codes of different types of errors. For example, -1 could indicate not able to read a file. -2 could indicate keyboard not connected. So these are all examples of return values. So generally if you return 0, it's a successful execution. A non-zero value is an unsuccessful execution of this program. In C++, the standard return type for main happens to be int. Do not write void main. It is incorrect as per the C++ standard. Now the general format of the main function is int main. These are all the executable statements followed by a return 0. So this is the general structure, general syntax of the main function. Now let us look at other things in this particular cube program to take us further in our understanding of functions. Okay. All right, let's come back here. Now this is cube is a function. After executing any instructions here, it may, I use the word may, it may optionally send back a value to main. It may or may not be required to send a value. In case you have used a return statement, the return data type must be specified compulsorily. It can be int, float, long, double, char, struct, anything like that. The value return statement is used to send back a value to the calling function. Main is calling, so this value 1010 cube is sent back to main. So the return statement is used to send back a value. Now you need to understand one important thing. If I write a return 0 before this return, it will never execute the second return. The first time the function executes a return, that is when the execution ends. So you can return only a single value from a called function. You cannot return 3, 2, 4 values. You can return only one value. And the first time the return statement is executed, the other return or other statements below that will not get executed. You can think of return as an exit from a function. The first time the return keyword is encountered, it will not execute anything after that. Now, the general form of the return statement. You can either have something like this return 0, or this is an example of a expression. So I am returning a complete expression. This is going to be calculated and a single value of type integer is going to be sent back here. Now, if this return keyword is there, the return type is mandatory or must as per C++ standards. It is possible that the function may have more than one return statement, but on executing or reading the first return statement, the calling the called function execution ends. It exits from the called function and goes to the calling function. I'll repeat. You may have 20 returns, but the first time the first return gets executed, nothing after that will get executed. Okay, there are certain functions which do not send back any value. Those functions are called as void functions. So what I will do is I'll replace this int with void, and there cannot be any return. You cannot say return and then use the word void. Void means nothing. So if nothing is being sent back from here to here, this will have to be void. All right. So now if you see this int cube int, this is known as the signature of this called function. This signature tells us what is the return type, int. What is the name, cube. What is the data type it accepts, int number. So this is known as the signature, which is a must. So signature gives you the snapshot of the function definition.